All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the January 10th edition, or I should say January 10th, 2022 edition of Shannon Reads 1099 Instructions. Today, we are talking about the 1099 NEC. Let me just share my screen here. We are talking about Box 1, 1099 NEC, which the Box 1 is non-employee compensation. Enter non-employee compensation NEC of $600 or more. Include fees, commissions, prizes, and awards for services performed as a non-employee, other forms of compensation for services performed for your trade or business by an individual who is not your employee, and fish purchases for cash. Include oil and gas payments for a working interest, whether or not services are performed. Also include expenses incurred for the use of an entertainment facility that you treat as compensation to a non-employee. So this question has come up quite a bit. I've seen it in a bunch of different groups where a contractor is getting invited to an employee retreat where there's, whether or not there's team building or not, because that contractor is not an employee, this sentence right here says that that is going to be included on a 1099 NEC for a contractor. Federal executive agencies that make payments to vendors for services, including payments to corporations, must report the payments in this box. See Rev Rule 2003-66. What is NEC? If the following four conditions are met, you must generally report a payment as NEC. 1, you made the payment to someone who is not your employee. 2, you made the employment for services in the course of your trade or business, including government agencies and nonprofit organizations. 3, you made the payment to an individual, partnership, estate, or in some cases, a corporation. And 4, you made payments to the employee of at least $600 during the year. Self-employment tax. Generally, amounts reportable in Box 1 are subject to self-employment tax. If payments to individuals are not subject to this tax and are not reportable elsewhere on Form 1099 NEC, report the payments in Box 3 of Form 1099 Miscellaneous. However, report Section 530 of the Revenue Act of 1978, worker payments, in Box 1 of Form 1099 NEC. Examples. The following are some examples of payments to be reported in Box 1. Professional service fees, such as fees to attorneys, including corporations, accountants, architects, contractors, and engineers, etc. Fees paid by one professional to another, such as fee splitting or referral fees. So when people refer clients to me to help them with fix payroll messes or for the employee retention credit, I pay an affiliate fee, which is a referral fee. So anytime I pay another accountant or anybody for referring a client to us, they get a referral fee. So I include those in Box 1 when I send out my 1099s. Payments by attorneys or witnesses or experts in legal adjudication. Payments for services, including payments or parts for, let me start that sentence again. Payments for services, including payments for parts or materials used to perform the services if supplying the parts or materials was incidental to providing the service. For example, report the total insurance company payment to an auto repair shop under a repair contract showing an amount for labor and another for parts if furnishing parts was incidental to repairing the auto. Commissions paid to non-employee salespersons that are subject to repayment but not repaid during the calendar year. fee paid to a non-employee, including an independent contractor, or travel reimbursement, which the non-employee did not account for to the taxpayer or did not account to the payer. If the fee and reimbursement totaled at least $600 to help you determine whether someone is an independent contractor or an employee, see publication 15A. Payments to non-employee entertainers for services. Use Form 1042S, foreign persons, U.S. source, income subject to withholding for payments to non-resident aliens. So when you send a W-9 out to somebody and they're like, oh, but I don't live in the US, then immediately you need to send a W-8 BEN, because if they performed the work in the United States, you have to send them something. They either get a 1099 or they get a 1042. Exchanges of services between individuals in the course of their trade or business. For example, an attorney represents a painter for non-payment of business debts in exchange for painting the attorney's law office. The amount reportable by each on Form 1099 NEC is the fair market value of their services performed. However, if the attorney represents the painter in a divorce proceedings, this is an activity that is unrelated to the painter's trade or business. The attorney must report that on Form 1099 NEC the value of his or her service, but the painter need not report on Form 1099 NEC the value of painting the law office, because the work was in exchange for legal services that are separate from the painter's business. Taxable fringe benefits for non-employees. For information on the valuation of fringe benefits, see publication 15B, Employer's Tax Guide on Fringe Benefits. So sometimes when you're working as a subcontractor for another firm, they will say, hey, do you want to be included in the health insurance benefit? And if you say yes, and any portion of the health insurance benefit or other fringe benefit is, let me start that over. Whatever gets paid for on your behalf as a fringe benefit is taxable at the fair market value for the recipient, which in this case would be the subcontractor. And again, that goes back to inviting a subcontractor to a retreat. If you pay for parking or other things to a subcontractor that's not an employee, that all gets added to the 1099 and EC box 1. Gross oil and gas payments for a working interest. Payments to an insurance salesperson who is not your common law or statutory employee. See publication 15A for the definition of an employee. However, for termination payments to former insurance salespeople, see the instructions for box 3 on the Form 1099 miscellaneous. I read those last week, so there's already a video that you can watch for that. Director fees as explained under director fees earlier. Commissions paid to licensed lottery ticket agents as explained under the commissions paid to lottery ticket sales agents earlier. Payments to Section 530 of the Revenue Act of 1978 workers. See the tip under independent contractor or employee earlier. Fish purchases for cash. See fish purchases earlier. I read most of these on Saturday. And now we come down to an illustrated example of how to fill out the 1099 NEC. We already covered this in another video, but I'm just going to let this sit on the screen here for a minute and show you that it has the payer's name, street address, city, state, and zip, and phone number. the payer's tax ID number, the recipient's tax ID number, the recipient's name, and their DBA, their street address, their city, state, and zip, and the amount of compensation is in box 1. So, and then it shows here on the actual 1099, this part here, that non-qualified deferred compensation, section 409A income, include in box 1 the full amount of the deferrals plus earnings reported in box 14 of the Form 1099 miscellaneous that are includable in gross income because the non-qualified deferred compensation plan fails to satisfy the requirements of the section 409A. And there's regulations to take a look at. Golden parachute payments. A parachute payment is any payment that meets all of the following conditions. 1, the payment is in the nature of compensation. 2, the payment is to or for the benefit of a disqualified individual. A disqualified individual is one who at any time during the 12-month period prior to and ending on the date of the change of ownership or control of the corporation, the disqualified individual determined period was an employee or independent contractor and was, in regard to that corporation, a shareholder, an officer, or a highly compensated individual. 3, the payment is contingent on a change in the ownership of a corporation, the effective control of a corporation, or the ownership of a substantial portion of the assets of the corporation, a change in ownership or control. 4, the payment has, together with other payments described in 1, 2, and 3 above, made to the same individual an aggregate present value of at least 3 times the individual's base amount. I don't do taxes. I have no clue how to calculate out the individual's base amount. So this is something that if you're doing a golden parachute payment, I would definitely seek the advice of a professional who's an expert in golden parachute payments. And then there's the next paragraph or so is, just talking about the different regulation sections and bulletins that you can take a look at. And then independent contractor, again, it says enter in box 1 the total compensation, including any golden parachute payment. For excess golden parachute payments, see the instructions for box 13 on Form 1099 miscellaneous. For an employee reporting of these payments, see publication 15A. And now we're going to talk about payments that you do not report in box 1. Do not report in box 1 expense reimbursements paid to volunteers of a nonprofit organization. Do not include in box 1 deceased employees' wages paid in the year after death. Those get reported in box 3 of Form 1099 miscellaneous. We're going to talk in detail later about deceased employees' wages. Payments more appropriately described as rent, those go on Form 1099 miscellaneous box 1. Royalties get reported in box 2 of the Form 1099 miscellaneous, and other income not subject to self-employment tax also goes in box 3 of Form 1099 miscellaneous. Interest goes on Form 1099 interest, INT. The cost of current life insurance protection, that gets reported on a Form W-2 or a Form 1099-R. An employee's wages, travel, or auto allowance, or bonuses and prizes, if those are reportable, they get reported on a Form W-2. And the cost of group term life insurance paid on behalf of a former employee go on the W-2. All right, so that covers what does and does not get reported on a box 1099 miscellaneous box 1. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe comment and like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to pass links to others as they ask questions, because this is the time of year when everybody